There we go. Now you can probably hear me. Oh boy. All right, we're figuring it out. We're figuring it out. Are we streaming here? There we go. Yeah, I think we are. I think we are. Is there a way for me to double check? Not there. Just give people a minute to join here. We're going to be watching Donald Trump's press briefing from today. I have no idea. I'm in a new setup here, so let me know if things sound okay. Live in some other places here also. Go live there. We'll go live here. And now we're all live. I'm not able to see if anybody's joining or not, so here we go. Morning, everybody.
It's a big day.
If you want to see what's behind me, you got to go to
fun.
YouTube.
I don't know.
I'm live on
find
YouTube
reasons
here.
why it's not, but I can't imagine because we have a lot of great things happening. It's been a very strong week and a very strong weekend. Before we begin, let me say a few words about the historic events that took place over the last few days. On Saturday, my administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons. And they were going at it hot and heavy, and it was seemingly not going to stop.
Hot and heavy.
And
India and Pakistan were going at it hot and heavy.
let you know that the leadership of India and Pakistan was unwavering, powerful, but unwavering in both cases. And having these, they really were,
Hello to
from the
Virginia.
standpoint of having the strength and the wisdom and fortitude to fully know and to understand the gravity of the situation. And we helped a lot. And we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I
Can't
used
trade.
it.
Can't
I
trade
can
with
tell you.
war-torn
And all of
countries.
a
You know what
sudden
I'm
they said,
saying?
I think we're going to stop.
Probably a good move.
And they have. And they did it for a lot of reasons, but trade is a big one. We're going to do a lot of trade with Pakistan. We're going to do a lot of trade with India. We're negotiating with India right now. We're going to be soon negotiating with Pakistan. And we stopped the nuclear conflict. I think it could have been a bad nuclear war. Millions of people could have been killed, so I'm very proud of that. I also want to thank Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio for their work and efforts. They worked very hard on that. We also, as you know,
The name on YouTube is Kellerman
created a
Comedy.
situation
Comedy
where
with
the
a K.
Houthis, for the first time ever,
This
have
is well.
ceased
I'm
firing,
live right now watching
and
it.
they've let it be known
This
that
actually
they're not
happened
gonna
about 2 hours
be
ago.
firing at American ships anymore. Not going to be firing at Americans anymore. This was a heavy barrage that lasted for approximately 50 days. And as you know, they've been in war essentially for forever. But over the last 10 years, they've
Yes,
been
you can cuss in the comments. It's the
difficult
fucking news, guys.
for other countries.
I'm not even bleeped when I'm
Nobody was
live.
able to do what we did.
You know what I'm
But
saying?
they stopped, and we take
not
their
even
word
poorly
for it.
bleeped.
Their surrogates and them directly said, we don't want to do this anymore. And so we were satisfied with that. In addition, yesterday we achieved a total reset with China after productive talks in Geneva. Both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10% for 90 days
Hi,
as
Nancy.
negotiators continue on the larger structural issues. And I want to tell you that a couple of things. First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that, or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States, and they're already starting to come back now based on tariffs.
Somebody said Trump has
Because
the
they don't
most
want to pay
cringe voice
25,
on
50, or
planet. Unless they're
100%
talking
tariffs,
about
so
me.
they're moving them back to the
I think they're
United
talking about
States. I spoke to Tim Cook this morning, and he's going to, I think, even up his numbers, $500 billion. He's going to be building a lot of plants in the United States for Apple.
Apple doing a lot
And,
in the
we look
United
forward
States.
to that.
They have
I
been.
really do
They
look
always
forward
have
to
done
that.
stuff in the United States.
But the talks in Geneva were very friendly. The
Thanks, Tom.
relationship is
And you're
very
welcome.
good. We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week. We have some other things we're doing. But one of the biggest things that
Some other
we're doing,
things
and
we're
I don't know
doing.
if people realize
Some other
this,
things
but,
the U.S. is doing with China.
we made a great deal with China, a great trade deal, but it was a much bigger deal originally, and then they canceled it right in the last day. Some of you faces I remember were there when that happened. I remember you. And we had a deal where they opened up their country to trade with the United States, and they took that away at the last moment, and then I canceled the whole thing, and then 6 months later we ended up doing a smaller deal, but it was a big deal. It was $50 billion worth of product that they were going to purchase from our farmers, et cetera. And we agreed to that. People thought it was 15 because
He's
they were
going to
doing
answer
15.
questions.
We made it
He's going to
50
answer questions
because I
about
misunderstood the
Pakistan and
15.
India towards
I
the
thought
end.
I said, you got to get 50. Because when I asked, if you remember the story, when I asked, what are we doing with them? My Secretary of Agriculture at the time, Sonny Perdue, said, sir, it's about 15 billion and we're asking for 15. And I thought he said 50. So I said, so they came back with a deal at 15. And I said, no way, I want 50. Because you said 50. They said, sir, we didn't say that. Anyway, bottom line, I said, go back and ask for 50. And they gave us 50. And they were honoring the deal. And we would call them up a lot for the corn and for
He
the
misheard
wheat and for
them
everything.
say 15 million.
They were honoring the
Said
deal.
50?
And then when Biden got in, they no longer honored
What a
the deal.
strategy.
There was nobody to call. I would call on an average of once every 2 weeks to say, come on, you have to speed it up a little bit. And our farmers were doing great. I said to them, buy more land and bigger tractors, if you remember.
You
That's what
you
happened.
can see what's behind
But,
me on YouTube, by
the
the
deal
way.
was a very good deal. But
Link in bio.
the best part of the deal was that we opened up China. China agreed to open itself up to American business to go in. And it would have been a great thing, I think, for China. They would be able to see things that they haven't seen. They would be able to buy products that they have never been able to buy. Would have been great for American business. I think it would have brought unity between China, better unity between China and the United States. And the bottom line is that they canceled it the last day. We were all set to sign it, and then I went a little bit angry. I got a little angry. I said, they canceled it. The deal was done. It was all
I
ready
got
to
a
be
little
signed.
angry.
People went over, they came back to me, sir, they don't want to sign the opening up China. Well, the biggest thing that we're discussing is the opening up China, and they've agreed to do that, but it's going to take a while to paper it. You know, that's not the easiest thing to paper. But that's the single, I think, to me, some people would disagree. Some people would say we're getting a lot of money with tariffs or whatever, but, you know, especially when you add what we already have. Because remember, we're already getting the 50% on steel and different things. That's not included
My
in
tie looks
these
the way it always
numbers. So you can add that. But the biggest thing to me is the opening up. I think it would be fantastic for our businesses if we could go in and compete with China. It would be a lot of jobs for China. It would be, I think, at a time when they can frankly use the jobs. And that's what we're
What's up,
talking
Pinky
about. So
Sorcerer?
that's a
Welcome.
very, very important element to add. So when Scott I watched him speak the other day, and I think he didn't want to
Hello.
say it, but I said, it's okay to say it. Look, if we don't get it, we don't get it. But if we don't get it, it won't be a positive thing. But if we do get it, I think it's maybe the most important thing to happen. Because if you think about it, we opened up our country to China. They have very few restrictions. And they didn't open their country to us. Never made sense to me. It's not fair. And they've agreed to open China, fully open China.
They've
And
agreed.
I think it's going to be
China.
fantastic for China. I think it's going to be fantastic
That's a big
for us.
deal.
And I think it's going to be great for
That's a really big
unification and peace. China will also suspend and remove all of its non-monetary barriers. They've agreed to do that. Well, they're very
Sounds pretty good.
numerous. But again, to me, the biggest thing that came out of that meeting is they've agreed. Now we have to get it papered, but they've agreed to open up China. Going to be great
Thank you for the
everybody.
people telling other people
And
to
third,
go
I'm
to YouTube if they want to
Very
see what's
happy
behind
to
me.
announce that
You guys are awesome.
Idan Alexander, an American citizen who, until recently, most thought was no longer living, thought was dead, is
are
going
the
to
same
be
thing.
released in about 2 hours, actually. And he's
Amazing.
going to be released before the eyes of Steve Witkoff, who's done a fantastic job. I just,
Yeah, so Hamas is
I know a lot of
releasing
people that have a
one
lot of
hostage,
talent. I know Steve had a lot of talent.
reportedly as a sign of
But I
good
know a
faith.
lot of people with a lot of talent, but I had
And
There's one
Israel's
that I thought had a
response
special
has been
way about
that
him,
they're
special
going to move ahead as
personality.
planned, basically.
aside from being a good deal maker, had a special way about him, and it was Steve. Knew very little about the subject matter, who does? But he learned it in about 2 hours. And he's been fantastic, so I want to just thank Steve. But they're going to be releasing Idan in about
What are you guys talking about on TikTok?
2 hours from now.
Switzerland
Or
is commanding
sometime
who?
today, let's say. And again, they thought he was dead just a short while ago. His parents are so happy.
Yeah, markets are
They're
booming
so
on
happy.
this. Somebody just mentioned
So
markets
it's,
are booming on this
As
news.
you know, Idan's
Coming down a little bit now,
the only
but
American
they
citizen
started
was
way up
captured
today.
and held hostage by Hamas since October 7th, 2023. And he's coming home to his parents, which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news. They thought he was dead.
It is good news.
So that's that. So we'll be heading
That's
there, and we'll be seeing 3 primary countries. You know all about that: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. On Thursday's meeting with Russia and Ukraine is very important. I was very insistent that that meeting take place.
No, I'm
I
not
think that
speaking
things
with
can
Trump.
come out of that
If you
meeting.
go to youtube.com
Stop the
/Kellerman
bloodshed
Comedy,
of
you can see me
the
just
horrible
watching today's
the
press conference.
bloodbath. But that 5,000 more, it's really much more, trying to be conservative, more than 5,000 soldiers. Russian, they're not American soldiers, they're from Russia, they're from Ukraine, but they're people. They're human souls, and they're being killed at levels that we haven't seen since the Second World War. And it's every week. A lot of drone fighting. It's a whole new form of warfare, and it's violent and vicious. And so that's it. I'd like to go back to China just for a second. They're very heavy on the fentanyl. We're charging them, as you know, 20% for the fact that they send fentanyl into our country. And they've agreed that they're going to stop that. And, you know, they'll be rewarded by not having to pay, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. So the fentanyl should stop. It comes from China. It's amazing. And comes through
wonder
our
how
southern
much of the
border, comes through our
fentanyl in
northern
America
border too,
comes
comes
from
through
China.
Canada, and comes through our southern border, much more through the southern border.
You know what? I can look it up right now.
But so
Why
that's
wait?
a very important subject to me, because everybody in this room has lost friends or people that have family members that have died of fentanyl. So there's a big incentive for China to stop, and I take them at their word. They're going to work on that, I think, very hard. And one thing, when they work on something, they get it done. So now I'm about to depart on a historic visit. Some of you are going with us to, as I said, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. Before I do, I'll sign one of the most consequential executive orders
Mexico
in
and
our
China are
country's
the
history. I
primary
don't think
source
there's ever been anything
countries for
signed like
fentanyl.
this, certainly not with respect to healthcare, nothing
Yeah,
even
I'll put it
close.
up on
I'm
the
delighted
YouTube screen so you can all
to
see.
be joined on this occasion by Secretary of Health and Human
Watch
Services
this. Watch what
Robert
I'm
F.
about to
Kennedy
do.
Jr.,
Go to
who's doing
YouTube
a
to see
really
some
good
shit,
job.
guys.
I have to tell you that. CMS Administrator, a friend of mine, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who is an amazing guy. You know, I was telling Bobby before, Oz had a very successful show, but it hurt his reputation. Because when you're in show business, it hurts your reputation a little bit. It's good for you, but in terms of professionalism and being a doctor, it sort of hurts your reputation. This guy went to the best schools, was the best, I mean, top of the line. Then he did a television show, became a success, made a lot of money, all that stuff, but it sort of hurt him. And you know who I compare that to? I hate to say this, but a special woman, Jeanine Pirro. She was the toughest, smartest DA maybe in our countries, in our cities and states history, New York. She was really tough, really sharp. Then she did a show, and people didn't think of her quite the same way. She became more of an entertainment person, like Oz. Oz is not an entertainer. He's not really an entertainer. You know the real story, and she isn't either. She is unbelievable. She was one of the strongest district attorneys in the history of New York, highly respected, very tough, went after the drug dealers at a level that you don't see today anymore, and hopefully she's given up she's leaving the #1 show on cable television, one of the #1 shows on television, period, The Five, but they've got great people left behind, but she was a big part of it.
Great.
And so I equated to that. Jeanine Pirro is unbelievable. FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary, with a reputation that's second to none, and the job he's doing already has been fantastic. Thank you, Marty. And Director of National Institute of Health, Jay Bhattacharya, who has been, as you know, from Stanford, so highly regarded, and have all been working with us very hard on this. And the question they would ask, being a little bit new to the government aspect of it, is why doesn't somebody fight the drug price situation, meaning equalization? There's a term, it's called equalization. Nobody wants to mention that term.
So this is the fentanyl
and I'm not knocking
train
the
I've
drug
got up on
companies.
here.
I'm really more knocking the countries than the drug companies, because they're forced to do things. But the drug lobby is the strongest lobby in this country, they say, the drug lobby. It's between that and lawyers, and they have a lot of power. But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. The countries where they paid a small fraction of what, for the same drug, that what we pay many, many times more for. And we'll no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma, but again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing, but they've gotten away with it, these countries. European Union has been brutal. And the drug companies actually told me, sirs, it was just brutal how they forced them. And European Union suing all our companies, Apple, Google, Meta, they're suing all of our companies. They end up, they have judges that are European Union centric, and they get rewarded 15 billion, 17 billion, 20 billion, and they use that to run their operation. Not going to happen any longer, that I can tell you. So what's been happening is we've been subsidizing other countries throughout the world, not just in Europe, throughout the world. European Union was the most difficult, from what I understand. And I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up, and he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. He's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay
What good are you,
$1,300.
ChatGPT?
What the hell is going on? He said, so I checked. And it's the same box, made in the same plant, by the same company. It's the identical pill that I buy in New York. And here I'm paying $88 in London. And in New York, I'm paying $1,300. Now, this is a great businessman, but he's not familiar with this crazy situation that we have. But he was stunned. But it was just one of those stories. And I brought
Somebody's
it up
saying
with
he's
the
doing
drug
a couple of
companies,
good things and
represented
nobody's
by
going to give
somebody
him
who's
credit.
very,
Yeah,
very smart.
I am wondering
person
how
too.
liberal media is going to
And we argued
spin
about it for about a half hour, and then finally
some
he
of
just
these
said,
things that are
they can't
objectively
justify it.
good things.
He just said, look,
This is a hilarious
You got
story,
me.
what he's saying right now.
you got me. I can no longer they've been justifying this crap for years. They said, oh, it's research and development. Well, I said, well, research and development, other countries should pay research and development too. It's for their benefit.
So,
it's just one of those things.
Trump just said that one of his
other
billionaire
countries
friends
would
called
set a
him up and
price,
said, why
and
are
they'd meet
things
the
so
price, and they'd
why is
say,
medication so
if you
expensive
don't meet the price, you
in the
can't sell
United
it in our
States?
country.
So
I
Trump
said, well,
called
then
a
you walk
different
away
one of his
and,
billionaire
they'll
friends,
call you back and they'll sell it in the
and that
country.
guy
But now
just
they'll have
couldn't
to do that.
justify it. So they're
So for the
lowering the
first
price
time
of
in many
drugs.
years, we'll slash
It's
the
great.
cost of
It's a good thing
prescription
for
drugs,
everybody.
and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down
It's still like, it
by
shouldn't work that way,
much
really.
more, really. If you think
But,
59, if you
know,
think
hey,
of
what works,
a
if it
drug
works,
that
then
is sometimes
it,
10
it is beneficial.
times more expensive. It's much more than the 59%. It depends on the way you want to analyze it. But in one way, you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, I remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically. And Farmer has to say, we're sorry, but we'll not be able to do this any longer to these countries that have been so tough. They've been very tough, nasty.
Balazi, Kamikaze, you may have misunderstood something.
And Pharma is also very powerful. And the Democrats have protected Pharma. This is the Democrats that have protected Pharma. These are the Democrats. And by the way,
It's not unfair of the UK.
I just called the
It's
Speaker of the
unfair
House,
of the pharmaceutical
and I
companies
just
to charge
called
less in the UK
the
than in the
leader.
United States.
our leader in the Senate, John
He's
Thune,
not blaming the
Mike
UK.
Johnson. Spoke to both of them. I said, when you score, you're going to have to score two things. You're going to have to, number one, score that hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff money is coming in. But even bigger than that, you're going to have to score that your cost for Medicaid and Medicare and just basically pharmaceuticals and drugs is going down at a level that nobody has ever seen before. It'll pay for the
Jay
Golden Dome. I
Mason,
see the Golden Dome.
I don't
is there,
agree.
see?
I'm
It'll easily
sorry.
pay for the Golden Dome.
I don't
And
think
we'll have a lot of
that
money left over.
100 lies
We need
lessens
the
the
Golden Dome, by the
good
way,
of
in
this.
this world. Although this
good
world's a lot
decision.
safer today than it was a week ago. And a lot safer than it was 6 months ago. We had people that had no clue what they were doing. So today Americans spend 70% more for prescription drugs than we spent in the year 2000.
It might be a
Think of
little
that.
easier to listen
Our
to
country
if
has
you
the
were on
highest drug
YouTube
prices anywhere in the world
watching
by
us.
sometimes a factor of 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It's not like they're slightly higher. They're 6, 7, 8 times. There are even cases of 10 times higher. So that you go 10 times more expensive for the same drug, that's big numbers. Even though the United States is home to only 4% of the world's population, pharmaceutical companies make more than 2/3 of their profits in America. So think of that. With 4% of the population, the pharmaceutical companies make most of their money, most of their profits from America. That's not a good thing. Now, I think, by the way, pharmaceutical, I have great respect for these companies and for the people that run them. I really do. And I think
Yeah,
they did
great
one of the greatest
respect.
jobs in history for
Because
their
they pay a
company,
lot of money.
convincing people for many years that this was a fair system. And nobody really understood why. But I figured it out. For years, pharmaceutical and drug companies have said that research and development costs were what they are. And for no reason whatsoever, they had to be borne by America alone. Not anymore, they don't.
Okay, that's
This
fine.
means American patients were effectively subsidizing socialist healthcare systems in Germany, in all parts of the European Union. They were the toughest of all. They were nasty. And I see that. I see that with trade too. European Union is in many ways nastier than China. Okay?
Wait. Tell me.
We
Tell me
just
what's
started
wrong.
with them.
You-
They'll come down a lot.
He
You
sounds
watch.
weird, or I sound weird?
We have all the cards. They treated us very unfairly. They sell us.
Oh, tell
13
me,
million
guys. Tell me
cars,
what
we
I
sell
can do
them
to fix
none.
the sound.
They sell us their agricultural products. We sell them virtually none. They don't take our products.
Is that better? Oh, you know what?
That
I
gives
know
us
why.
all the
I know
cards.
why, guys. I know
And
why.
very unfair. So they're going to have to pay more for
I know
health care, and we're going to have
why.
to pay less. That's all it is.
There you go.
Believe it or not, because
Sound
it's
should
really
be
the
fixed
world
on
we're talking
YouTube.
about, not just the European Union, but because it's the world, the numbers are.
Did that fix it?
The numbers are for the
Tell me if
healthcare
that
company
fixed it.
not as bad as you would think. They'll make the same. I think the healthcare companies should make pretty much the same money. I really don't believe they should be affected very much because it's just a redistribution of wealth. It's a redistribution where it could be the same top line, but it's going to be distributed differently. Europe's going to have to pay a little bit more. The rest of the world's going to have to pay a little bit more, and America's going to pay a lot less. Again, because it's a much smaller population than when you think of the whole world. So basically what we're doing is equalizing. There's a new word that I came up with, which I think is probably the best word. We're going to equalize. We're all going to pay the same. We're going to pay what Europe's going to pay. We're going to all pay. Now, there may be some countries in dire need, and I would be willing to sacrifice that and help them. But it's called most favored nation. We are going to pay the lowest price there is in the world. Whoever is paying the lowest price.
I'm gonna try to figure out how to fix
we're
that.
going to get. So remember that. So we're no longer paying 10 times more than
Schmagelman.
another country.
Who called me
Whoever is paying
Schmagelman?
the lowest price, we will look at that price.
I've never been
and
called
we will
that
say
before.
That's the price we're going to pay. Most favored nations. That's what it is.
Hey, love that.
One breast cancer drug costs Americans over $16,000
Shamugelman.
per bottle. But the
People
same
are getting
drug
crazy
from
on
the same
YouTube,
factory
guys. I'm getting a bunch of new
manufactured
nicknames.
by the same company is 1/6 that price in Australia and 1/10 that price in Sweden. 1/10 for the identical product. A common asthma drug costs almost $500 here in America, but costs less than $40 in the United Kingdom. So $40 in the United Kingdom, which is where this gentleman told me he paid a small amount.
Yeah,
for
this is
his-
really interesting, actually,
shot.
because,
But
Trump has
think of
been
that. So $40
blasted in the media for the
versus
last few months for
$500
cutting
here. That's not even
Medicaid
bad. Much worse
benefits
examples on the weight loss drug.
government
Ozempic
sections
costs
that
10
deal with
times more in the
healthcare and
United
all those
States
things.
than in the rest of the
But
developed
all of
world.
those things were really
10
just
times
kind of
more.
putting band-aids
What did we
on
do?
the issue, which was expensive
Suckers.
drug costs.
But we never had a president.
One of
that
the
had
issues, I
courage
should
to
say.
do
That's certainly
this.
not the only issue with the healthcare
And
system in
nobody
the
knew
United
the
States.
system
But
like I do. I mean, I've gotten to know.
he
the
got rid of
system
those
so well.
things that help people
And I
pay
don't
for
think it's
expensive
bad
drug
benefits
costs.
Obamacare
But
is
then
okay.
he
It's not a
just
good-
made the
not a good
drug
healthcare.
costs come down. So
it works. I made it work. I had an obligation to make
this
it work.
seems objectively good to me.
Or an obligation to let it die.
It seems
I
like it
chose that
fixes
we had to make it
something
work. I
that
had
there
to make
were
it
a
as
lot of
good as
band-aids
possible.
on.
And
He removed the
I
band-aids
had
and
a
then
choice. I
just
could have
fixed
let
the
it
issue.
fail,
From where
or
I'm
make
sitting
it
from a
as good as
neutral
possible.
perspective.
As good as possible means it was still
Obviously,
not very
I'm
good,
open
but it
to
it survived.
other people's
And we did the
interpretation
right
of this,
thing.
but
this makes everything work. And I don't want to have a bad form of healthcare work because of the fact I was able to cut drug prices by 80 or 90%. So we're going to maybe come up with something. I think this gives the Republicans a chance to actually do a healthcare that's much better than Obamacare and for less money, which if you guys would
he's been
work
talking
on,
about getting rid of Obamacare for a long time, but
But I do
hasn't
wanna
had
say that,
anything better
Democrats
to
could have
replace
done
it
this
with.
a long time ago. They have fought
So
like
if he
hell
came up with
for the
something
drug
better,
companies, and they knew they were doing the wrong
maybe
thing.
Trump care could
It's
be
gonna
better.
very hard.
He hasn't been able to figure that
I
out
was
yet.
just telling.
We'll see if RFK
the
can
leader and the speaker
help with that, maybe.
It's going to be very hard for the Democrats to vote against the one big beautiful deal. the greatest tax cuts in history, greatest everything, but now you have the big drug prices because that's going to be included. It makes that whole situation different from a scoring standpoint. I just told him, I called him up about
He's
this.
saying that it'll be difficult for Democrats to vote against his big, beautiful bill that he's drafting up because it will include these cuts to medication prices.
Add hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs.
But who knows what's going to be in that bill? It could be 100 different things, and if the only good thing is, I mean, obviously, what things are good or bad is going to depend on your own personal beliefs.
But only confronted in a minor way. It was a good confrontation. But never to this extent.
I wouldn't demonize Democrats for voting against the bill just because it has some good things in it. It depends on what else.
But Joe Biden, without any knowledge of what he was doing.
Of course, there are going to be Democrats who vote against it just in like protest of Donald Trump being president. But I don't think that they're the majority
take a look, 5
of
out
Democrats.
Of the 10 drugs that he negotiated,
I could be wrong about that.
Are now over 200% more expensive in America than the rest of the world, and far more expensive than when he even got involved. Much more expensive than when he got involved. Joe Biden's plan was
the fucking news comes out later. We're doing a live watch-along
but it was a very big failure
for Donald Trump's press conference this morning. Go to YouTube if you want to see it.
Representatives and Department of Commerce to begin investigations into foreign nations that extort drug companies by blocking their products unless they accept bottom line and very low dollar amounts for their product, unfairly shifting the cost burden onto American patients. And we'll be taking a look at that very strongly. The biggest
we gotta turn that off.
We're going to tell those countries, like those represented by the European Union, that that game is up. Sorry, and if they want to get cute, then they don't have to sell cars into the United States anymore. It's a very big subject, and they won't get cute because I'll defend the drug companies from that standpoint. They were given a price by the European unions and other countries.
Michelle, I think that might be a misnomer, and this is just my. This news just happened, so this is just my current understanding. I'll obviously be doing more research on this, but I believe he reversed $30 insulin. He got rid of the
most favored nations drug pricing, the
essentially legislation that forced
drug in other developed countries, that is the price
insurance companies to subsidize the cost down to $30 for patients. And I believe what he's replacing it with is simply a actual lower cost of insulin.
Drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced.
That's just my current understanding of that situation.
50 to 80 to 90%. Big pharma will either
obviously
abide by this principle voluntarily, or will use the power of the federal government to ensure that we are paying the same price as other countries. To accelerate these price restrictions and reductions, my administration will
thanks. I love you too.
The middlemen. We're going to totally cut out the famous middlemen. Nobody knows who they are. Middlemen. I've been hearing the term for 25 years.
Why is he saying middlemen like it's a last name?
But they're rich. That I can tell you.
He's talking about the middleman.
We're going to cut out the middlemen and facilitate the direct sale of drugs.
Not Peter Middleman.
The most favored nation price directly to the American citizen. So we're cutting out, Bobby, the middleman. It's so important, right? You got to do that. They're worse than the drug companies. They don't even make a product, and they make a fortune. It's very smart business people, that I can tell you. If companies make no significant progress toward most favored nation pricing, which we will insist that they do, so I think I'm wasting time talking about it. We're going to insist upon it. And we'll insist, and we're going to help the drug companies with the other nations, because those other nations do a lot of trading with us. They need our trade just like China needed us very badly.
Ron Middleman.
They need us just as badly. We will...
I'm your host, Middleman, and this is the fucking news.
We did some great things with trade with India and Pakistan. Really helped the situation, very heated situation.
Ooh, okay, Nick, with the Watchmen quote?
Millions, I mean, many millions of people. And they want to do business with America, but we never used our powers that way. We never knew how. We never had people that knew how to do that. We'll also open up America's market to safe and legal imports of affordable drugs from other countries, putting dramatic downward pressure on prices.
Michelle, I believe the prior legislation reduced the consumer cost of insulin
that are doing this,
And what
we will add
this
it on to
legislation does is reduce the
price,
wholesale cost
that
of insulin.
we charge them for doing business in America. In other words, we'll add it on to tariffs if they don't do what is right, which is everybody should equalize. Everybody should pay the same price. And special interests may not like this very much, but the American people will. I am doing this for the American people. I'm doing this against the most powerful lobby in the world, probably the drug lobby, drug and pharmaceutical lobby. But it's one of the most important orders I think that's ever been signed, certainly with regard to healthcare or health.
It's a good one.
Of our country, and it's an honor to be a part of it. And I'd like to ask Robert F. Kennedy to say a few words, please. Thank you.
Oh boy, if you thought Trump's voice was annoying,
Thank you, Mr. President.
get ready for RFK to take the mic.
This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator in Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies.
Tell me in the chat, who is worse to listen to, RFK or Donald Trump?
Largest lobbyist.
How many liberal
lobbying.
people
So
are
this
actually in the
was
chat here?
This was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything.
I really hope my audience is
because
like
it was
30 to
radioactive.
50%
You couldn't get it by Congress. We now have
Republican,
a
Democrat,
president who is
other.
a man of his word.
30% each way would be great.
President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he
Yep,
can't be
sure
bought.
did.
Unlike most of the
Trump's like,
politicians in
yep,
this country.
that's exactly right.
And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people.
Some people are saying they have a harder time listening to Trump than RFK.
Our country represents 75% of the revenues for pharmaceutical companies. We spend in our country $1,126 per capita.
It's a tie for some people.
And Britain, they spend about $240.
Oh, Ashley
spend
specified
one-fifth of
she's a
what we do.
Canadian liberal.
And this is true across Europe. And the drug companies, Europeans, if you ask them, it made no sense what they were saying. America has to pay for this innovation or it's not going to happen. President Trump is saying to our European partners is you got to raise the amount that you're paying for those drugs and pay for your share of the innovation. That the United States is no longer subsidizing that. If the Europeans raise the price of their drugs by just 20%, that is $10 trillion. That can be spent on innovation.
It's just because I was talking really loud.
People all across
I'll
the globe.
try to minimize that.
Because we're going to have better products. So,
Samantha thinks I don't attract a lot of Republicans. I don't think that's true. I have a lot of Republican followers. I hope
have a couple of
half
kids who are
or
Democrats.
30%.
Are big Bernie Sanders fans. And when I told them that this was going to happen, they had tears in their eyes. Because they thought this is never going to happen in our lifetime. And we finally have a president who's willing to stand up for the American people.
People thought there was an audio issue, but it's just RFK's voice.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy. This is
Dr. Oz.
the most powerful executive order on pharmacy pricing and healthcare ever in the history of our nation. And it's only happening because we have a president with the fortitude, the guts to stand up to the withering criticism and
God.
mobbing that's going to occur as soon as folks hear about the
Like,
executive
look,
order.
guys.
So, on behalf of the child in Philadelphia who's got an autoimmune
This is a good
disease with
thing
$1,000 a
that
month
Donald
drug, or
Trump
the,
is doing.
Older woman
But those
in Los Angeles
those
who's got
comments
blood
where they're
thinning
like, it
disorder,
couldn't have been
copay.
done
I
without
wanna
a
thank President
president
Trump. God
as
bless you for having the
strong
guts
as
to
Donald
take
Trump.
on
Those
this
are
industry.
like
Thank you, sir.
big ass kiss moments.
So let's talk
completely
about the details
unnecessary.
A little bit. And this is primarily
Trump's doing a good job.
about
He deserves credit
equalization,
for
as
it.
President Trump said, it's about fairness.
But
Think
oh
of
my
NATO
God,
as a
I feel
metaphor.
like that, and people did the same thing about
President
Biden.
Trump
Oh,
said, "You've got to
thank
pay a
God we
little
have
more,
such a
so it
caring
makes sense for all of us." They came up,
president.
and
You know, it's like
European countries contributed. The same thing we
pointless.
believe will happen in this situation. Most people who have thought about this process agree that it is patently unfair to tolerate the numbers that Secretary Kennedy and President Trump have reflected to you. On this chart to my left is a list of the 10 drugs that were
I'm glad that
negotiated
liberal.
in the IRA.
I'm seeing a lot of
Again, this is
people in the comments
bill,
saying
the
that they
law
are liberal,
that
but
regulates,
see that this is an
negotiation
objectively
process.
good
This
thing.
is the best price that was able to be obtained
That's
by the
nice.
Biden administration. And if you look at these numbers, they actually reflect how much on top of the most favored nation price was being paid by the United States.
No, this is
So
not
the
about the
closest
trade
to
deal
the
anymore.
majority-
Now they're
closest to the
talking
majority
about
is
pharmaceutical
closest one,
prices.
289%, the one that's closest to you. That means that we are paying in
Thanks,
America
RFK, for
4
keeping
times
us on track
more
with this
than that drug
crap.
costs in other countries. Again, 100% is the baseline.
It's that last
289%
one.
above that baseline. It goes all the way down to where we're paying 50% more than any other country. That's the range. As was pointed out by President Trump, half the time we're paying 3 times more than is paid in other countries. It doesn't make any sense for the system. That stated, President Trump has over and over again indicated, and Secretary Kennedy reflected as well, we want innovation. We want our technology partners doing the best they can to make the best solutions for drugs that cure as many people in America and around the world as possible. By getting our allies to pay a bit more, as they should
Hey,
be,
thanks.
and
Shout
they
out
should
to
have for many
Africa,
years been doing,
Ethiopia.
will course correct a problem that's gotten out of hand.
Much
And by
love to
doing that
Ethiopia.
in a thoughtful, effective way, we're going to be able to get the pharmaceutical industry whole. Those jobs will still be here, will still be productive, will still be curing cancer and a slew of other ailments that plague humanity. America will still be the leader in this space, but we're paying the appropriate amount, the right-sized amount for those tasks. So over the next 30 days, the 4 of us up here, together with people standing in the back of this room, we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, are going to be approaching pharmaceutical companies to talk specifically about what we want the most favored nation price to be based on the best data we have. We're looking forward to a thoughtful interaction with these corporate leaders, many of whom we've spoken to and in quiet will agree.
This guy looks
the
like he's
system is
fucking
not right the
tweaking
way it
over
is.
here.
They're patriotic Americans. They want
It's
what's right.
rolling.
But the fact that in my lifetime, as Secretary Kennedy said, for the first time, we have a thoughtful and aggressive approach, thanks to President Trump, on taking on the special interests, should give all Americans confidence that this is an administration that stands for fairness and should chill the waters for those who believe they can push us away from our North Star, which is to take care of the American people. Mr. President, God bless you.
Thank you.
Jay, you want to go next?
So I teach economics at Stanford as well as health policy. And one thing that's really, really simple in economics is that when you have a persistent price difference for the same product between 2 countries, there is something deeply wrong. And what President Trump has done is a historic measure that should have been done a long time ago. What we're going to
That's
do
all
is,
true.
is make sure that those prices
Undeniable.
become much closer to equal, like a competitive market you'd expect. Right now, what's happening is the American people are subsidizing in large fraction the research and development efforts for drug companies around the world by the higher prices that we pay. With this new order, Europe will share the burden of that. And in fact, if you may think of it as like as somehow it's going after drug companies, actually it's helping drug companies. Because what we're also going to do with this order, what President Trump has done with this order, is he's said to European governments, look, if you are taking advantage of the drug companies by forcing them to charge very, very low prices, we're going to defend American drug companies in Europe. At the same time, we're standing up for the American consumer who's been paying far too high prices for far too long. I can go back decades to point to congressional report after government report after government
Hey,
report.
thanks,
of
Jay Johnston.
tremendously high drug
Shout out to
prices,
you in Texas.
much higher than the rest of the world. And nothing has been done about it until this moment. And I'm really, really proud, President Trump, that you have done
You
this.
should go to
I'm really proud to be
youtube.com/Kellerman Comedy so that
that
you can see who's talking, if you're wondering.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the many doctors I've talked to about this very issue, thank you for taking the bull by the horns. Presidents on both sides of the aisle have talked about this and floated it and said they've wanted to do it, so you've had the courage to do it. Thank you. I've been a surgical oncologist at Johns Hopkins for 22 years, and I have seen patients suffer. We didn't take an oath to heal patients and then watch their life get ruined financially with their home, mortgage, retirement, going down the drain with GoFundMe campaigns, raising money from church communities and synagogues and friends they haven't seen in 20 years to try to raise money for what? For a system where Americans have been getting ripped off by 10,
Nick in the chat
12,
is saying that they have to
15
hunt
times
down
higher prices
coupons
than
for
we see in
deals
other
on
countries.
pharmaceuticals,
The
which I didn't even know there were
fundamental problem
coupons
in healthcare is that
for
we've had
pharmaceuticals.
non-competitive markets. We can do little things around the edges, or we can transform those markets to competitive markets, and that's what this
Wow.
executive order does today. Imagine
I'm not going to repeat that, Jay Mason, but
buying a Ford
hilarious.
for $175,000, a regular car, and then hearing that people in London are buying it for $10,000 every day, all day long. That is the craziness of this system.
So,
We're
do you
gonna
think
everything we can at the
pharmaceutical
FDA to
companies
support
will...
this executive order?
I think that
It's
pharmaceutical
transformative.
prices
Thank
will
you, Mr.
come down in
President.
the United States initially. But the point is
thank you very
equalization
much,
here. So
everybody.
do you
It's,
think
I think it's a
eventually
very
they'll
important
just
day. In many
rise
ways, you have-
everywhere else also, right?
We'll start with the Houthis. We go to Pakistan and India. We
Okay,
go
now we're
to
talking
what we
Pakistan
did with
and
China, the trade deal, and with UK. And by the way, many other deals are coming in very much. At a certain point, we'll just set the price because we know where we are. But we'll just set the price. But world trade is going to be terrific, and our country is going to be making a lot of money. Taxes are going to go down. Taxes are going to go down very, very substantially. But you look at all of the things that we've done, and now today I'm heading over. We'll see what we're going to do with respect to Iran. I think you have very good things happening there too, by the way. I think
Really?
can't have a nuclear weapon, but I think that they are talking intelligently. We're in the midst of talking to them, and they're right now acting very intelligent. We want Iran to be wealthy and wonderful and happy and great, but they can't have a nuclear
Just
weapon.
not
Very
without
simple.
a nuclear
So
weapon.
I think they understand that I mean business, and I think they're
Over the weekend, Donald
being
Trump
very
was quoted
reasonable
as
thus
saying
far.
that they can
And,
blow up their nuclear
don't
reserves
underestimate Thursday in
Uh,
Turkey.
themselves easily, or
President
they,
Erdogan
the
is
U.S.
gonna be
can
a
do it the
great
hard
host.
way.
And we are doing some work with him having to do with Syria too, by the way.
Thank
We
you,
have to
So
make
Life.
a
Someone just
decision
said
on the
that they don't
sanctions,
think
which
I
we
have a
may
lot of
very well
Republican
believe
followers,
when
and
they take them off
I don't know if it's
Syria
half.
because, we want
I
to
don't know
give them a
if
fresh
it's
start.
50%, but I hope that it's
But,
somewhere. I hope it's 30.
President Erdogan's asked me about that. Many people
30 or
have asked
higher.
me about that because the way we have them sanctioned, it doesn't really give them much of a start. So we want to see if we can help them out. So we'll make that determination. But I think you're going to have maybe a good meeting. You have the potential for a good meeting, that a meeting wasn't going to take place. I insisted that that meeting take place. And it is taking place. And I think you may have a good result out of the Thursday meeting in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine. And I believe the two leaders were going to be there. I was thinking about flying over. I don't know where I'm
Throw
going
an
to be on
R
Thursday. I've
or
got
a
so many
D in the
meetings.
comments. Let me know if
But,
you're Republican
I
or
was thinking about
Democrat.
actually
Or
flying
O
over
for
there.
other.
There's a
How's that?
possibility of it, I guess, if I think things
Doesn't have
can
to just be
happen.
those two.
But we got to get it done. We got to save 5,000
But I am
lives
curious.
a week. 5,000 lives is really more than that. It's
Who
worse than
joins
that.
the lives?
And when you see and you don't want to see it, but when you see the satellite photographs of the battlefield with arms and legs and heads all over the place, separated by 30 yards from bodies, doesn't make sense. So we're working very hard to see if we can end that.
Steven just said that the
Bloodbath.
easiest way to lower your drug costs
Okay,
is by
there
going to
shouldn't
the
be too many
gym and
questions.
eating a
It's been
healthy
covered
diet.
pretty
But you
well.
know, here in the United States, a lot of people work 3 jobs. And it's difficult to find time to cook or go to the gym. Not everybody. But some people, I would say that that's a somewhat privileged answer.
To go back up to 145%.
No, but they would go up substantially higher.
And then on
You know, at 145, you're really decoupling because nobody's
Thank
going to
you.
buy. But they can go. They got very high because of.
I'm seeing a real good mix of D's, R's, and O's in here, by the way.
No, but they go
So
substantially higher.
I'd
think
love
you
to
will have a
not
deal,
skew
however.
one way or the other.
Confident that there will be a deal on Qatar. Has Qatar asked for anything in exchange for that $400 million luxury jumbo jet? And how can the American people be so sure that they will not in the future?
Well, I
Supporters
think what
asking about
happens with the plane is that, we're very
the
disappointed.
plane
that it's taken
gifted
Boeing
to
so
Trump
long
by
to build
Qatar.
a new Air Force One. We have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to the new plane of the equivalent,
Thanks,
stature
Jay
at the
Mason.
time, it's not even the same ball game. You look at some of the
O's is for other.
Arab
If you're not
countries,
if you don't
and
identify as a
they have
Democrat or a
alongside of
Republican,
the
there's a
United
lot of
States
other
of
things you
America
could
plane.
identify
It's like
as.
from a different planet.
So
And
O
it's
is for
close
other.
to 40 years old, might be more than 40 years old now. And we, when I first came in, I signed an order to get it built. I took it over from the Obama administration. They had originally agreed. I got the price down much lower. And then when the election didn't exactly work out the way that it should have, a lot of work was not done on the plane because a lot of people didn't know. They made change orders that were so stupid, so ridiculous.
I can't
and
believe they
ended up being a
contracted
total
Boeing
mess.
to make the next
A real
Air Force
mess.
One.
And when I came back,
Didn't
I said,
Boeing
"By the
have,
way,
like, the
what's going on
most
with the Boeing
mid-air
coming in?" Well, sir, they're
issues
way
with their
behind.
planes
They are.
last
They're
year?
way behind. They were way behind. Another mess that I inherited from Biden, and it's going to be a while before we get them. And I think Qatar, who has really, we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership. of
Thanks.
The leader, Qatar.
So Life
And I think they're very
420,
nice.
smash
They know about it
the
because
smash
they
the
buy
like,
Boeings.
guys.
They buy a lot of Boeings.
I never tell people to
and
do
they
that,
knew
but I
about it,
probably
and
should.
they
Like,
said,
subscribe,
we
do all the
like to do
things.
something.
Follow
and
me in places.
If we can get
Go to the
a
Substack. There's
747
a lot more stuff there.
as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones. I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, "Oh no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one too," and it helps us out because again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy top, is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person, say, "No, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane." But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to, we will continue to, all of those countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and others, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now. And I think this was just a gesture of good faith. And I don't get it. Someday it'll be like Ronald Reagan. They decommission them. They get to a certain age, they decommission them. It'll go to my library. They're talking about going to my library in years out. But I thought it was a great gesture. And it's something that was done by Ronald Reagan. They actually decommissioned the plane and he put it in his library.
Thanks, Tank.
It actually has made the library, I think a Boeing 707. It's actually made the library more successful. So it was good.
Do you plan to use the plane after you leave office?
No, I don't. No, it would go directly to the library after I leave office. I wouldn't be using it. No.
Mr. President, on the
Huh.
hostage,
Gift to the administration, not to Trump
of the American
personally.
hostage, Aaron Alexander, is a step in good faith to end this war. Do you expect any progress, or perhaps announcement on ceasefire during your trip to the Middle East?
We hope that we're going to have other hostages released too, as you know. So when I met with the hostages 3 weeks ago that were there for quite a while, you remember the 10 people that came in, mostly young people. 1 or 2 were a little bit older. They were explaining the trials and tribulations. I mean, they went through hell. And I said, "How many are there?" They said, 59. I said, "That's a lot." I didn't realize, because we got a lot out. We got a lot of hostages out, I think you will acknowledge. They said 59, but then they said, they followed that up by saying 59, of which 24 are living, the rest are dead. But the people whose son, mostly son, I think 1 daughter in this case, but mostly sons are there, or husbands, are there. Those people want the dead bodies as much as they want the live body. I have a mother that calls me, that came up to me when I first met her, and she said, "Sir, please get my son out. He's dead, but they have his body." And I asked her about that, and it's as though
It's so
he were
awful.
alive. The level of wanting that body back is the same. It couldn't be any more, as though he were alive. So, getting the bodies back is very important. It could be a thing having to do with the religion. It could be said. I was amazed at the level of importance. It's the same as if the son or husband or whatever was alive.
I don't know if it's the same.
They said 59. In fact, they
I don't know if
came
I'd say it's the
they came in
same,
with a
you
number
know.
59 written out on like a sign on their chest.
The
They came to
grief
thank
is
me
the
for
same.
getting them out.
I would assume, or similar.
And,
It's not the same.
I
It's
said,
just not
what does
the
the
same.
59 mean? They said, well, that means there are 59 people. But then they said, but 24 are living. Now it's 21. The number's 21. So now it's actually, we'll get Etan today. We think we're getting him today. So it's 20. So they have 20 live hostages there. The rest are dead bodies.
Mr. President, are you open to
I wonder how
negotiating
accurate that
tariffs
is.
on cars, steel, and aluminum with China or any other country?
Well, we're not even talking about that. We're bringing the car business back into this country. We have commitments, and not only commitments, they've already started construction on many plants. They've left Mexico in a few cases. In a few cases, they've left Canada. They're not going to build in Canada. They're going to build here because we have the market, and the tariffs have been amazing. The election and the tariffs. November 5th was a big day, and on top of that, of course, you wouldn't have the tariffs without the election, I guess, if you look at it. But we have at least 11 committed massive car factories that are going to be built, that are in the process of being built. And some are going through, some have actually started. We also have renovations of existing factories where they weren't utilizing the full factory from years gone by, and now they're under full renovation. They'll be opening up full factories.
People in the chat are saying that Trump's
Our car
stamina
industry I think
is
we're the number one
unnatural.
industry. If you look at Japan and these others,
He's
they do
doing a lot.
tremendously with
He
cars,
is
and,
doing a lot.
and they
No
can
question.
do that too. If they want to sell cars in the United States, they're going to have to build factories in the United States, because I'm interested in cars for the United States. Now, one other thing is, in our tax bill, we're giving not only no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, but also we're going to get a deduction for people that borrow money to buy a car if it's made in America. If it's not, we have no interest.
That's interesting.
Between President Putin as well as President Zelensky. If President Putin doesn't show up to these talks in person in Turkey, will you join Europe in putting higher sanctions on
If I felt it would be important toward getting the deal done, I'm the one that insisted on the meeting. They couldn't get a meeting.
Somebody just
because
asked,
one said ceasefire, one said
how
no
does
ceasefire.
anyone
It was
still
going
believe
back
what
and
this
forth.
man
I said, "Look,
says?
at this
And I
point,
find that to be an
you gotta
interesting
stop
question
it.
because...
Just go to the meeting. The meeting has been set. Go to the meeting on Thursday. And if I thought it would be helpful,
Yes, he lies.
I don't know where I'm going to
As
be at
does
that
every
particular point.
politician
I'll be
who has
someplace in the
ever
Middle
opened
East,
their
but I
mouth.
would fly there if I thought it would be helpful.
But he has done so much of what he promised to do, or at least started the process of all the things that he said that he would do. I don't understand how you could not trust that he's going to attempt to do the things he says he's going to do.
War from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Kapaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something, but we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of, but it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about, but it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me, but white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa, and the newspapers and the media, television media doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they talk about it. That would be the only story they talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people and to escape from that violence and come here. Yeah.
Please. Mr. President, thank you. Are you letting China off the hook for these 90 days, and do you really believe that they will follow through with non-tariff barriers and remove those?
Non-monetary tariffs, yeah. Yeah, I think they're going to follow through. I think they want it very badly. I think they want the deal very badly. Again, this doesn't include the steel tariffs that I put on a long time ago that Biden tried to get off, but he couldn't get them off because it was too much money. You know, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China, what a lot of people don't know, but we put on the tariffs originally.
Thank you to the people trying to help me reach my chili
industry
goal
today. Now
on
we have
TikTok.
A thriving steel industry. It'll be thriving much more.
What a world we live in.
Because this is the next level.
I'm getting a bunch of chilies on
it doesn't
TikTok
include
while we
that,
watch
doesn't include cars, doesn't include
Spicy Trump.
pharmaceuticals when we do that. And the reason we're doing that will be to get them to come back in the country. You know, there are, again, I always say it because a lot of people forget, but if a company like Eli Lilly, which is making a massive investment in the United States right now, they're building many, many plants. They've already started like 7 of them, many plants, but they are not going to be tariffed. There's no tariff cost. So they're
Yeah, I mean,
all
look,
doing
trust
that.
is
They're all
a
coming back to
weird
the
thing
United
when it
States.
comes
And
to
I'll tell you
politicians,
what,
right? Trump has
I
obviously
hope I
gained
get
a
the
lot of
benefit
people's
watching this
trust,
because, as
even
president,
though
because
he
it
has
takes
lied a
while
bunch of
to do
times.
this stuff.
Joe
we're doing
Biden,
it early in the administration.
Kamala
If you think
Harris,
of
these
it,
people
we have,
had a bunch
I
of
believe,
people's
If
trust,
you look at the real total,
even
it's
though
over $10
he lied a
trillion
bunch of
committed
times.
to plants and factories.
That's why
Other administrations haven't.
the way
had
I look at everything is
1
sort of in its
trillion
own
over a
vacuum.
4-year
You know,
period.
the fact that he lied
Even
about
over
that
an
other
8-year
thing
period. We
just
have
doesn't mean
over
he's lying
10
about this
trillion
thing.
committed
It
in
just
one
doesn't.
form or the other over 2 months.
You could speculate.
Give me a break. I'm here to hear
You could
three,
say
but
it's
let's
more
give me a break
likely
in the
that
first-
he's lying,
for
but
the first month. We want to get acclimated. But,
he
if you think about it, it's really
he could
2
be
months.
telling the
And
truth
so
at
in 2
any
months,
time.
We have an investment already of over $10
I
trillion.
think liberals need to accept that.
Other presidents haven't had that done over a year, over 4 years in some
And
cases.
on the other side, Republicans
It's
need to accept that he does
unprecedented.
lie
There's never been anything
sometimes,
like it.
and
It's
you
a very
can't trust
exciting time
absolutely everything that he says.
in America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, I thought he was going to answer one more question, but oh, he's going to sign some executive orders. Dude, let's sign it. Sign these orders. Let's get out of here.
Let's see what happens.
The budget bill negotiations are taking place. Who in your administration is in charge of that while you're gone? Is it
Everybody,
Stuff
Bobby,
like
from the standpoint of medical, this group behind me, I mean, I think it's the best group ever assembled. In terms of medical, I think you're gonna see a tremendous cut, I don't think, I mean, I know you're gonna see it in Medicaid and Medicare. That cut will be massive because drugs are 50–60% of the cost. So Medicaid costs are going down and Medicare costs are going down because of what we're doing today. And there's no, it's not like, oh gee, well maybe it won't happen. It's gonna happen because the other countries have no choice. Now the drug companies are gonna have to say, listen, if you don't pay more, we're not gonna give you the drug, and they're willing to do that. So that's it, they have to, we have to equalize.
How do you respond to the fact that price controls?
Say it?
How do you respond to the fact that this?
It's not price control, no. What was, price control is before.
Right.
If you want to talk about price control is what they were doing. They were making us pay. They set a price and they said, here's what we're gonna pay. And anything else charge America. Because at that time they had a very stupid president and it really went crazy over the last 4 years.
He never misses an opportunity to call Joe Biden
Democrats
stupid.
are the ones
That's-
that allowed this to happen. They were the ones that were the protector of this pricing system. And I think it's gonna be very hard. You'll have to ask Democrats, are they gonna vote against the one great, big, beautiful deal that's being negotiated now, tax cuts, etc. We're now on top of the tax cuts and regulation cuts, all the things. Now you're gonna say that the price of your medicine is going down by 60, 70, 80%. You're gonna vote against it? I think a lot of Democrats are going to be forced to do something that their leaders are going to beg them not to do, and that's vote for the bill. I don't see how they can vote against it. How can they vote against it when drug prices, drugs and pharmaceuticals are going to be down?
Well, it depends on the other stuff in the bill.
It's going to be very
Obviously.
interesting.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it
You're
behind?
ABC fake news, right?
Why
Because
not?
only ABC, well, a few of you would. Let me tell you.
He already
You should
said
be
it's not a
asked
gift
asking that
personally to
question.
him. I mean,
They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us, I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. You know, there was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto: when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole.
See,
a lot of people are stupid.
now,
They say,
here
no,
is
I
a
insist
fake,
on
a
putting it.
false
Didn't they
equivalency.
miss it?
That's sort of
They
dishonest in
You
nature,
know
right?
what?
Because
Remember that Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and
in
you walk to the
business,
next hole and you say, thank you very
receiving
much.
gifts can be considered a conflict of interest.
Have you ever been given a gift worth millions of dollars and then not received
It's
anything?
not a gift to me, it's a gift to the Department of Defense.
To not acknowledge the
And you should know
fact,
better, 'cause you
like
can
he
embarrass
could,
yourself, and so has your network. Your network
he could
is a
say the
disaster.
same thing.
ABC is a
Even he
disaster.
could
Here is the,
still deny that it in any way influences anything.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, question about Turkey.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You know, he could have still denied that he would be giving any favors to Qatar based on this gift of a plane. But instead he acts like, how could that possibly be a conflict of interest? Which is silly, because of course it could be a conflict of interest, and I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying it could be, and that I think that he could save a little bit of face if he just acknowledged, I see why you would think that. It's not fake news. I see how you could interpret it that way. But that isn't the way it is. You know what I mean? To act like that's just a completely ridiculous thought, not helping in my opinion. It doesn't help liberals come over to the, to understand what's happening. It makes them go, look, he's lying. Look how he's not even acknowledging the fact that it could be that way. Because of course it could. All right, anyways. Thanks for joining me on this live. I'm gonna try to do this more often, but sometimes it's gonna be on Substack, sometimes it's gonna be on YouTube, sometimes it'll be on socials. You really just gotta follow me everywhere to find me. So, thanks everybody.